We're supposed to hit the first time then.
Well, that's just for the speakers.
Oh.
Yeah, that shouldn't impact anything. So, yeah, the reason there wasn't volume that one time is because I'm pretty sure I didn't have the mic plugged in. So, yeah. But anyway, we're going to do it on Google Sheets, which should be a lot easier. We'll see. So, learn the rules of probability associated with roulette and expected value, which we did last unit. We're going to apply that in context because we did it with lotteries. We did it in a very simple fashion, but not in a way that you can take home and relate to your real life. So, a little background. I do well with the game of roulette, but the time that I did the best was when I was a passenger in a car driving down to Atlantic City with my graphing calculator and a notebook, figuring out different strategies and the expected values that go along with it. Using this, I actually developed this tech assignment. It was for the calculator at the time, but I actually used this tech assignment and I destroyed the casino that day. Right. So then, but the issue with me, I mean, I don't have a. You should do the same, yeah. Yeah, it's just when you get your big haul, don't then go to the blackjack table and then gamble all that money away. You know, take the money and think go have a nice dinner. Yeah, go to whatever club is popular that night. Yeah, yeah. Go to the hotel room. Go, whatever you want to do. Like, I don't know. Just don't do what I did. Well, I didn't buy a car with what I had earned. Instead, I went to the blackjack table.
You're straight up thinking you drink and gamble, or are you just strictly there to, punch the
No, when they come around, I don't say no.
Okay.
Yeah,
So people
so
are there and they're like, no.
yeah, I don't get stupid, but I don't. Yeah, I try to be reasonable. They're watered down anyway, so it's fine. But like significantly.
Because a bunch of the old school guys will tell you you're gambling to make money, but also for entertainment purposes.
Right. I mean, and there's some research you can do online, and you'll see that certain people with strong mathematics backgrounds are not allowed in casinos. It is. I'm not at that level yet, but I'm working my way up. I'm working my way up the ladder.
Professor, can we get extra credit if we beat you in a game of poker?
I'll say yes. Because I'm pretty confident. So, okay, down to business. So let's talk about the structure of the roulette wheel and the table. And what happens is people study the table very carefully without studying the wheel. And they pay a hefty price when that happens. All right, because, well, I'll talk about the different bets. A bet on a one number is called straight up bet, pays out at 35 to 1. We talked about very, very briefly, but the issue with that is there's 38 possible outcomes. So if you were to bet on 38 different numbers, I suppose, on 38 different spins of the wheel, it is possible that you could win one time, but it's still only going to pay out 35 to 1. So you're still behind. All right, so you could never make it up. Even if the probabilities worked out exactly the way they should, you're never going to make up any losses just by hitting one time. All right, so not a good strategy in all cases. But if you do what I did and you sit there and study the wheel for a little while, for like 100 spins, it gets awkward. I'm not going to lie about that. And notice that certain numbers have not come up at all. Now you're sort of getting a sense of what the probabilities ought to be, because you know that in the long run it should balance out at the end. So if the number 8, for example, has not come out in the last 100 spins, okay, it's a small-ish sample, but let's say the number 2 has come up 5 times. what's more likely to come up in the future based on your own personal perception. The one that's come up a bunch of times or the one that hasn't come up at all. You might look at it in different ways. If you have a personal belief of like, okay, the number 2 is hot, then you might say, okay, I'll go with the 2, but if you say that the number 8 is due, then you would go with that. You also have to be aware that there are humans involved. And some of the dealers can pick your spots. That's how good they are. When they turn that wheel and shoot that ball, they can get it within 1 or 2 slots of where they're aiming. That's how experienced they are. Now, if you go up to, like, I'm trying to think where it is. It's like the Monticello area. What's the new casino that's
Oh,
up there?
it's terrible. Don't go.
Yeah, it's because all the dealers are novices. However, that means they make mistakes. And when they make mistakes, it could be for you or against you. And I've had some friends, this is anecdotal also, I've had some friends go up there and they win a hand and the dealer would try to take the money. And he'd say, whoa, 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 hold on. I won that hand. He'd say, oh, okay. And so once they got a sense of what was going on, they would say the dealer would, flop or, put down their cards or whatever. And then without even checking with the dealer, they would just grab all the chips, even though they lost, because the dealer didn't know any better. Right? So there's that was blackjack.
That's the one up in.
Yeah. So there is a human element, but then you go to Vegas, where that is their career.
Isn't that in Nevada? That's a crime. They were arrested in front of the crime for doing that.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I don't know if they were in New York, but in Nevada they would.
But also it's much more difficult. I mean, you don't go into Vegas with the expectation that you could do that because the dealers are so well trained and that is their career. Whereas you have in New York, you have somebody who just turned 21. It's like, I just work here on the weekends, and they barely know how to play the game themselves. So it's a little bit of it's an emerging industry here, whereas over there it's been established for years. All right, so there's that component of it. Things to keep in mind. A 2-number bet called split bet pays 17 to 1. So if I were to bet on that, let's say I put my chip down on the line separating the 8 and 11. That means I'm betting on either 8 or 11 coming up. All right, so that's the rule of OR. All right, the sum of 2 probabilities. Anyway, that's not going to pay out as well as a 35 to 1 because you're hedging your bet. All right, so if the number 8 or 11 comes up, I win, but I only get 17 times my wager. Now, in the game of roulette, I get my wager back. All right, so if I put down, you can't put down $1, but if I were to put down $1, I'd get 17 new dollars plus my $1 wager, so I walk away with 18. All right. 3-number bet called the street bet. That's where you put your chip on the line. That represents well, in this case it looks like a column, but it's a row bet. All right, so you bet this particular row just by putting your chip on that line at the top of the screen. All right. Depending on where you play, sometimes you put it down here. All right. So you just got to know the rules of the table. All right. In some places, I think it was in the Bahamas, where they wanted it up here, but in Vegas wanted it down here. I could have that backwards, but it was one or the other. All right, so know the rules of the game also. And in those situations, there's some games where it's like they don't want you speaking at the table, but there are some where it's like, it's friendly to newcomers, where if you have a question, you're better off asking rather than making assumptions, because they get pissed if you make assumptions and don't ask the question. All right. So that pays at 11 to 1. A 4-number bet is a corner, so I put that's a little bit more obvious. I put the chip on the corner, separating 4 numbers. Any of those 4 numbers come in, I get 8 to 1. 6-number bet, same idea as a street, except you're putting it on the corner between 2 consecutive values. Let's say on the bottom line, that would be both of these 2 columns here, right? But again, the way this is oriented, just a fit. It looks like they're columns, but these are actually rows. So if any of the numbers, for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 come up, I'm going to get 5 times my wager. Then you can bet on the outside dozen, pays a 2 to 1. Right? So that plays out a bunch of different ways. If I put my chip on the first 12, that's the first 12, second 12, third 12, 2 to 1s, these 2 to 1s is the column going from 1 to 34 down that line, 2 to 35, 3 to 36 down those lines. They do not include the 0 or the double 0. You can do a split bet between 0 and double 0 if you want. But the 0, double 0 do not count as any of the columns. All right. The even money bets, 1 to 18, even numbers, black, red, odd, 19 to 36. They all pay out 1 to 1. So you put $100 down, you get $100 back in addition to your $100 wager. So you double your money. All right. So the 2 to 1 wagers. So you got to be careful. Just have a good sense of it, especially if you're playing at, some casino that's an emerging casino, because those places are a little iffier. But you see 2 to 1, you walk away with twice your wager. That's incorrect. All right. You should be getting double your wager, which means you should be walking away with 3 times what you went in with. So you put down $100, they should be giving you $200 new dollars. You walk away with $300. So just be careful about stuff like that. All right. The even money bets, they sound like probably the best case scenario, but they're no more advantageous in the long run than any other bet, as you'll see when you do the expected values. And this is a good indicator. No matter what strategy you choose, the expected value in the game of roulette, which is why the game is so beautiful, the expected values, no matter what wager you select, is always exactly the same. So if I wagered on a single number infinitely many times at 35 to 1, or if I did the safer bet on black infinitely many times, in the long run, the expected value would be exactly the same. But one of them has better payout in the short run, right? Because if I put $100 down on the number 8 and it hits, my night's over in a good way. All right. If I put $100 down on black and I win, I can play for a little longer. Okay. And also, I've had people, I've witnessed this. It's funny and alarming at the same time. Been at a table with a person who, and I'm not counting his winnings and losses, but it's hard not to notice that he's putting down like $1,000 on every spin of the wheel and losing consistently. And I'm like, whoa, we've been here for a while. That's got to be like 40 spins. And then he puts down like $500 on black, wins, and then prances around like he just won the Super Bowl. I'm like, you just lost $40,000, and on one spin of the wheel, you gained back 500. What are you dancing for? So there is that, but that's what we call disposable income. So anyway, you have different strategies that come into play. So for example, you might say, I'm going to go with the numbers 7, 8, 10, and 11. Actually, that's what I go with. Right, so if you want to write that down, I like those numbers. They seem to work for me. But also, you might want to look at the positioning on the wheel of those numbers. So if you were to decide on a strategy, you may want to consider where those numbers fall on the wheel, because just because they're around each other on the table does not mean they're around each other on the wheel. So here's a 7, here's an 8. If you miss the 7, it doesn't mean you're getting the 8. It's like, oh well, if it's just off by a little bit, oh, I missed the 7, the 8 will come up. That'll be great. It'll be fine. No, it's on the opposite end of the wheel. All right, the 10. So you look for the 10, which I'm struggling to find for. Oh, here it is. Then you look for the 11, which is not opposite the 10 because the 9 is opposite the 10. It's right next to the 7. All right. So if you're gonna do a corner bet, maybe you do the 7, 8, 10, and 11, even though the 8's over here, because at least the 7 and the 11 are close to each other, and you can create a wager that accounts for consecutive values. All right. Now, the 20, you look where the 20 is on the board. 20 is in this column. All right, so that's not much help. But you might look for another number, like let's say where is, so I got 7, 11, and 30. Where's the 30? Still not much help. But then you look at the quality of the numbers. 7 and 30 are red. 11 and 20 are black. And come up with a strategy related to that. Personally, I like these numbers because the 7 and 11 are consecutive to one another. I do take note of where the ball landed on a previous spin because oftentimes on consecutive spins, the ball will land in the same neighborhood. All right, just based on the physics of it. All right, so the dealer has habits. They spin the wheel a certain way. They pitch the ball a certain way. They have a consistency to the way they do it. They generally do not vary. And when that happens, similar outcomes occur. So if they're releasing the ball at the same location around the wheel, generally around, consistently from spin to spin, then there becomes a predictability element in this whole thing. And so I know that if, let's say the 9, the 26, and the 30 came up, then we're living in this neighborhood. I might choose values, maybe not the 9, the 26, and 30, but maybe something in that neighborhood. All right, so just some things to consider. But if you're going strictly by the numbers, if you're looking for corner bets or street bets or even column bets, you might look at where they fall on the wheel. I gotta look at my notes, but at some point I mark up the wheel, and you can do this pretty easily. Just mark up the wheel with a different color for the first, this is the column, because again, it's organized the wrong way. First column, second column, third column, mark it up with different colors. And just see which column has the most clustered values, the ones that are closer to one another. I think it's the middle column. There is one column that if you're going to bet, that's the more advantageous column to bet on. Right? And you can figure that out. Right? There is one, even though it seems like it's kind of an even thing, probability-wise it ought to be, but there is one that does tend to come up more frequently than the others. All right? But these are things that you can investigate on your own. There's no wrong answer when it comes to completing the assignment, but there is a right answer when it comes to taking this knowledge and applying it to your own lives. All right? So what you're going to do is develop a betting strategy for wagering $10. Now, that might be unrealistic because a lot of casinos have minimum bets of $25, $20. So we're just going to work with $10 because the numbers are pretty clean. But just understand that you might have to modify your thinking if you actually do go to the casino. All right. You may not, I read it right. You may not wager all $10 on a single outcome. So don't put it all $10 on red or all $10 on black. You got to split it up in some way. You can keep it simple though, because I want this to be something that's that you can relatively easily do. All right, but don't keep it on a single outcome. You want to put $5 on black, and I've had people do $5 on black and $5 on red. They say I can't go wrong. In this assignment, okay. If you're going to learn the hard way, learn it in this assignment. Don't learn it at the casino, right? So $5 in black, $5 in red. Can't go wrong, except when green comes up. 0 and double 0. Also, this is American roulette. There's European roulette, which is the better one, because that only has a single green, just a 0. If you ever see that one, go for that game. The probabilities are nicer, the expected values are nicer, you stand a better chance of winning. Okay. Because there aren't two instances where a value could come up that screws up your life. Only one instance. There's only one instance in which that'll happen. All right. So you're going to use your strategy in different types of outcomes possible to determine the expected value for a $10 bet, and then use Google Sheets to simulate playing the game for 200 spins. It seems terrible. Nah, it's easy. And create a graph, and then you're going to write a summary that addresses the viability of your scenario. And your summary could be, I looked at the numbers, I looked at the graph, tell me attributes of the numbers, attributes of the graph. My strategy is garbage. don't ever use it. That's just perfectly satisfactory answer. It means that you learned something from the experience. All right. But you might have stumbled onto something that you can use, and that's also good. All right.